Trump's press secretary absolutely dismantles this clueless journalist after she has this brainless query. You guys gotta check this out.
Just a quick follow-up, two quick follow-ups on tariffs. The president mentioned a little disturbance during his remarks yesterday. The CEO of Target says that consumers will likely see prices go up on everything from strawberries to bananas to avocados. How long should Americans expect to pay higher prices? Are we talking a week, a couple of days, a few months?
Again, I don't have a crystal ball, but what I can assure the American people is that this president and this administration is doing everything they can. And I would remind you and everybody else in this room that it's because of the previous administration's economic policies that Americans were left with record high inflation. Inflation throughout Joe Biden's entire 48 months in office was at or above 3%. It hit record highs, as you know. And there's a whole list of what the Biden economic disaster this president was left to clean up. It's been a month, but he's working hard every single day to do just that.
Follow up on the carve out. Sorry to cut you off there. The U.S. imported $43 million worth of eggs from Canada. I know you mentioned some of the exemptions when it comes to automakers. Will there be any other carve-outs, including for eggs? We know prices are soaring for Americans.
The president is open to hearing about additional exemptions. He always has open dialogue, and he'll always do, what's right, what he believes is right for the American people. But again, as for the egg crisis in this country, the president is wholeheartedly committed to ensuring we're increasing our egg supply, and we're also bringing down cost. And Secretary Rollins has been all over this issue. She comes from an agricultural background and family. That's why she's leading that very important department. She wrote an amazing op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. She's been all over the media talking about her plan. She has a real plan. The president endorses it. And he even, gave her an off-the-prompter shout-out last night to say, Brooke, I'm counting on you. It's an important issue. And this White House is working with Secretary of Agriculture every single day to address this issue. Sure. Jordan.
Thanks, Caroline. So, what does it say that the Democrats, while they couldn't stand for Americans or stand for victims, they stood for war and clapped for war and clapped for 5 more years of war?
Yeah, the president addressed that last night, I think, when he called out Senator Elizabeth Warren and said that, again, as I said in my opening speech, very telling that the Democrats refused to clap for American people and American interests and American priorities, but they did clap for the country of Ukraine, which, by the way, the president's working very hard to end that war. So Democrats should be applauding him for actually doing something about it.
Follow up on that if I can. You've spoken recently about how what happened in the Oval Office last week gave Americans an inside look into behind-the-scenes discussions with Zelensky. Is this how he treated Joe Biden and just treated him disrespectfully and received billions of dollars?
Well, it's a very interesting question. I don't know if anybody in here asked my predecessor who stood at this podium about that, but there was a report from NBC News that President Biden also got increasingly frustrated with President Zelensky when he was handing out blank checks and President Zelensky kept asking for more. Joe Biden was quite frustrated with that. So again, as I've said repeatedly, Friday revealed the frustrations that this administration has had in closed-door negotiations with the Ukrainians. However, President Zelensky did put out a statement yesterday, which we believe is a positive step forward. And National Security Advisor Mike Waltz has been talking to his Ukrainian counterparts. And so we're in the midst of this, and we'll see what happens next. Caitlin.
Thanks, Caroline. I have 2 questions. One on the reprieve that is being granted to these 3 automakers for 1 month on the tariffs on Canada and Mexico. How did the president settle on 1 month?
The reciprocal tariffs will go into effect on April 2nd, and he feels strongly about that no matter what, no exemption, so that's where the 1 month comes from.
Does he expect them to be able to shift production within a month?
He told them that they should get on it, start investing, start moving, shift production here to the United States of America, where they will pay no tariff. That's the ultimate goal.
And on the conversations between the White House and the Ukrainians and the letter that President Trump revealed last night that he got from President Zelensky, Director Ratcliffe said today that the president has paused also intelligence sharing with Ukraine. Is that temporary or is that permanent?
I believe what the National Security Council told me in regards to that was that they paused or they are reconsidering the funding for Ukraine, as you saw, the pause on the funding. As for intelligence matters, I would refer you to either the National Security Council or the CIA as well.
When it comes to Vladimir Zelensky, I have no doubts that is exactly how he treated Joe Biden. Even though Joe Biden was supplying this man with hundreds of billions of dollars, he was still acting like a spoiled, petulant child. And when Trump came into the Oval Office, he had one goal in mind, and that was to end the Ukraine-Russian war, because there's no point to it. He doesn't want to see any loss of life. It doesn't matter if you're American citizen, Ukrainian citizen, Russian citizen. He just wants the fighting to stop. Shouldn't we all just want the fighting to stop? But after seeing Zelensky in the Oval Office with J.D. Vance and Trump, it seemed to me he did not want the war to stop. And honestly, could you blame him? Because if the United States and the European Union consistently give this man billions and billions of dollars, would you want the war to stop? He's not dying in the war. Other people, his own citizens, are dying. He's taking people from the streets and throwing them on the front lines. This is despicable. It should not be happening. Zelensky should not be in power. He is a puppet. He is not the one pulling the strings. And when Donald Trump met him, he specifically said, Ukrainian soldiers are brave men risking their lives. Because they're fighting hard, and they don't want this war to even happen. Zelensky wants the war to continue, and until he comes groveling back to Donald Trump and apologizes, swallows his pride, realizes there's no winning this war, for an actual willingness for peaceful negotiations. Because when he came the first time, he was just a spoiled, petulant child. That's why you need strong leadership like J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, who said, enough is enough.
Reinstating the military aid going to Ukraine, which they paused this
Again,
week.
it's a pause for a review.
Follow up on that.
Sure.
The president read parts of the letter that he received last night from President Zelensky. Can you give us a sense of when President Trump now plans to sign that minerals deal after receiving that letter?
Those talks are happening as we speak. I just saw the National Security Advisor. He's working very hard on it. I believe he was going into the Oval Office to give the president an update on where this stands. But again, the president is committed to a peace deal. He wants to see this war end. And I think that President Zelensky's message, which he also shared on X as well, is a positive sign in the right direction.
The president also said that the United States was reclaiming the Panama Canal. Mm-hmm. The president of Panama this morning, or at some point today, said that President Trump was lying. Wanted to get your response to that, and also curious if the president had a reason for not specifically mentioning BlackRock last night when he was praising the company that is buying canals or ports around the Panama.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Panama has seen what's going on with their own canal, but as you just mentioned, BlackRock is now interested in investing and taking over the two ends of the port, which is very important because the president was very vocal several weeks ago about the need to ensure that China is not controlling the Panama Canal. This is a very important place for the United States of America. We also saw that the Panama Canal lifted fees on our U.S. naval ships that are going in and out of the canal. That's a win for the United States of America. And the president will continue to ensure that the Chinese government, the CCP, cannot be infiltrated in the Western Hemisphere, and certainly not in the Panama Canal, which is a very important place for our country. Dasha.
The president continues to call the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, Governor of Canada. I'm curious what he means by that, and if there are any plans that are moving forward with trying to make Canada the 51st state. And I have a follow-up on the economy as well.
Sure. Well, the president put that in his True Social account, or his True Social post earlier today. He feels strongly that it would be very beneficial for the Canadian people to be the 51st state of the United States. They wouldn't be paying for these tariffs. They'd have much lower taxes if they were part of our great country.
Carolyn, on the economy, you and I traveled the country during the campaign. This is an issue that so many voters decided to cast their ballots on, and they voted for President Trump. He has started to have that realistic conversation with the American people, that disturbance comment last night. But I'm curious if you can be real with Americans right now as all of these factors are playing out. Are things potentially going to get worse before they get better?
Look, I've now been asked and answered this same question just given to me in different verbiage of 3 different times, and I will answer it again in an effort of transparency to the American people, because this is an important issue, and the American people, this president understands that it is. And again, that's why in his joint address to Congress last night, he addressed this issue with a realistic and honest approach. He talked about what this administration is doing to unleash American energy and to to make America affordable again, and this administration is wholeheartedly committed to doing it. And I would remind the American public that the first-term record of this president speaks volumes. That's why they reelected him, because they know that he can fix our broken economy, and it's very, very broken from the previous administration. Stephen.
I've got two questions, one on press access and the other on fentanyl and tariffs.
Sure.
On press access, your predecessor, Karine Jean-Pierre, who presided over many novel press access restrictions, criticized the recent changes to the press pool made by your office. She said in an interview, quote, "What we're looking at is what North Korea is doing." What's your response to that, and can you say anything to allay concerns that unfavorable coverage will be punished in this new press pool system?
I think that's the same individual who said from this podium numerous times that the commander-in-chief was mentally and physically up for the job, which we knew was a lie. Many people in this room knew it was a lie. Many of you were admonished for asking questions about that truth. So when it comes to truth and transparency, this administration, this White House is setting the example. This president is taking far more questions than his predecessor, Joe Biden, did on a daily basis, and that will continue.
And on fentanyl and tariffs, fentanyl produced largely in China has killed 334,000 Americans over 5 years. According to CDC data, that's about 1 in every 1,000 Americans. President Trump has cited this for applying new tariffs to Canada, Mexico, and China. But in addition to China's talk about being ready for any kind of war, they said yesterday, the foreign ministry said that, quote, "The fentanyl issue is a flimsy excuse to raise U.S. tariffs," and, quote, "The U.S., not anyone else, is responsible for the fentanyl crisis." So what's the response to China that the talk of fentanyl is just an excuse for tariffs, and what does that say about the resolution?
Well, of course, the country that is getting very rich off of distributing this deadly poison to American citizens is going to say that. Again, the president knows where the American people stand on this issue. Fentanyl overdoses. Dasha brought up all of us campaigning all across the country. They talked about inflation. They also talked about the border, the illegal immigrants that were pouring through, but also these deadly drugs.
98% of all the fentanyl in the United States under the Biden administration came through the Mexican southern border, and this poison originated in China. Do you think it's an accident? Do you think China accidentally let loose this poison inside the United States? Or do you think it's more likely this was a calculated move to try and weaken America? I don't know about you, maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I think China has a vested interest in making America weaker, making themselves stronger. And I'll tell you what, they were doing a great job of it. Under Biden, they were taking advantage of America at every turn. But now that we have strong leadership like a Donald Trump in office, you think this is gonna fly? Do you think he's just going to let 300,000 American citizens' deaths die unnoticed? He's gonna hold whoever is responsible for that accountable. So if that means slapping a tariff on Canada, Mexico, China, then we have to do that. We need to make them feel the repercussions of allowing this to happen. When it comes down to what Karine Jean-Pierre, Biden's old press secretary, said about comparing this administration to North Korea, give me a freaking break. Any mainstream media outlet who purposely pushes out fake news and lies to the American people on a daily basis, they should be punished for doing so. We cannot allow open disinformation when they know what they're publishing is a lie. If you ask me, this right now is the most transparent White House we have ever seen, because they're constantly taking questions, talking to the press. They want to let the American people know what they are doing. They want to let the American people know what's happening every step of the way. Don't you think the interviewers who are actually honest and tell the truth should be rewarded, and the ones who lie should be punished? I don't know about you, but that sounds like common sense. So right now, I just feel America is in good hands, and we have leaders in positions who are actually willing to make sacrifices in order to benefit the American citizens. These people that Donald Trump put in his cabinet all could be making millions upon millions of dollars in the private sector, yet they're willing to make that sacrifice for us and for the betterment of America. Donald Trump has put together the greatest cabinet of all time, if you ask me, and I cannot wait to see what they accomplish. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this down below. Do you think there's actually a chance that Canada becomes a 51st state? Let me know. I'd love to know your opinions on that. And if you enjoyed, make sure to smash that like, comment, subscribe, and wish you guys nothing but the best. Till next time.